Morning. So this is just a quick run through of kind of how we work. So Beds24 is the channel manager, and it hooks everything up from all the, let's have a look here. So all the different channels. So you've got them all here. Links all your properties up to as many of them as you want, and then from that, when a booking's made on Airbnb or Booking.com or TripAdvisor, or wherever it is, it kind of comes down. It obviously drops into the calendar of that particular property, and it then obviously you've got the calendars here, and then it feeds all the reports for the cleaners and everything else that goes on. If you want to pull financial reports, you can pull all them. So it's pretty good. It's not the most fancy channel manager, but for me, it does everything that it needs to do, and it's great value for money. It has widgets to put on your website, so you can integrate everything. So basically, this is the starting point. It feeds all the channels, and what we then do is I then plug in this app, which is Wishbox. So Wishbox, when a booking comes into Beds24, it automatically sends a confirmation email, as you'll see here, to the guest. And then what happens is the guest has to then go through these sort of motions of they pre-check-in. So during the pre-check-in, they have to upload their documents ID. So you can see here, these are the check-ins, check-outs. You can see here, these haven't done their pre-check-ins. So if they don't pre-check-in, they're not going to get their lockbox codes, and they're not going to get their guest app, which then gives them all their information. It gives them the details of where the property is, and how the boilers work and everything else that we put in there as well. So so this system kind of tries to automate the process as much as possible from booking to checkout, and with a bit of luck, we'll not hear from the guest. So pre-check-in, arrival message. So these get sent in various times before their stay. Obviously, if they book for 3-4 months out, then it'll send them a pre-check-in message straight away when they book, and a welcome message. And then closer to the time, if they still haven't filled it in, it automatically sends all the information out all the way up to the day of check-in. They then get their guest app, and obviously they've got guidebooks. You can put upsell things in here. So if you want to charge for a late checkout and things like that, you can add them in. And then obviously you get a pre-scheduled message. And then there's a pre-checkout as well. So the guests get an email on the night before they're checking out, just basically asking them, to confirm if they've had a good stay, if they've had any problems, and obviously what time they're going to check out as well. Because if they're going to be checking out at 7 a.m. in the morning, although checkout for us is 11 a.m., it means we can get the cleaners in there and we can kind of get ahead of the schedule a bit. So this is kind of the bones of our system. What we then have is price labs. So great tool, so you can kind of see what your occupancy is over the next sort of 7, 30 and 60 days. I use this, so every Wednesday I check into this. I think any changes you make on a Wednesday are going to have an impact for the weekend and also the next 7 days ahead. And for me, it's just a good day. So every morning on a Wednesday, I schedule some time in the diary to actually go through each of these properties and look at, tweaking the rates up or down based on their occupancies. So in effect, what you do is you set your base rate. So you set your base rate, which as you can see here, and then you obviously have a minimum rate. Hopefully you never touch your minimums, but at the end of the day, if there's a last minute booking and you still get your minimum rate and you still make profit, then there's no big deal. So you can kind of see booking histories here, and current price, recommended prices. You get some base price help as well, based on data and information that I guess the system collects. And, that's for the sort of area of bedrooms, so occupancy in each price ranges, price trends, occupancy trends. So, as you can see there, obviously it's dipped quite a lot. Which is obviously natural with the COVID situation that's going on, but things are starting to pick up again, which is great. So this shows you that, obviously this property in the next 30 days is pretty empty. So hopefully we can pick up some bookings here. This is one of our larger properties. We tend to get contractors, and it's quite a good weekend property, this one. So we've got our base rate here at 110. We also have an uplift of that rate, as you can see there, on a Friday and a Saturday, because it is a good when bars, clubs are open, and the restaurants, and travel's a bit more free. So again, I'm not panicking too much, because I know that's going to come back fairly soon, hopefully from sort of the 6th of July onwards. And you can things, you can increase prices, you can have minimum stays for certain periods. So if there's an event coming up, then you can hike the prices. But what this does is, as you'll see here, my base rate's 110. So as you can see, it's kind of fluctuating the prices. The weekends there, it's uplifting it. And then these days here, it shows you. So the different colours here, as you can see, is low demand, normal demand, good demand, high demand. So you can see here, July, that it's saying that, for whatever reason, this weekend is going to be a busy weekend in Newcastle. July, Friday, Saturday, not entirely sure what it is. I know, but it's probably, I'd imagine, the start of the summer holidays is probably what it's looking at there. Obviously, September the 11th and 12th, although I think it's going to get cancelled, is Great North Run weekends. You can see there, we've got this build out for like nearly $350 a night. And that'll be the same for the Saturday and the Sunday, which is already booked out. All of our properties are booked out for that weekend. We make some good money around the events. And as you can see here, this is uplifting the prices. So I've got a rule that basically says anything outside of 45 or 60 days, I think it is, uplift the price further, because I'm not too bothered if people want to book well in advance, then, I can maximize the profit. For me, I'm concerned about this number here. So what's happening in the next 30 days? What's the health of the next 30 days? Because I think most people do book in that 30-day period, with sort of serviced accommodation and the way we operate. So, how healthy are these two figures is I'm not really too fussed about the 60 days, because I think they naturally pick up towards their booking days. So it's not like, I'm planning a trip to Portugal with the family and I need to do it months in advance. Most of the people we get through are people who, book for work or last minute stays or weekend trips to see family, things like that. So, they do tend to be last minute bookings. And I think that's probably the case for most serviced accommodation operators across the UK, apart from maybe places like, Cornwall and Cotswolds and things like that. So for me, PriceLab is a great tool. I do think it's still, you can set and forget it if you want. We've got all the places here. You can set and forget it if you want. But it's good to keep an eye on I just think it's good to keep an eye on your numbers in your business, and whilst this system has a lot of data sat behind it, I do think that you can never just fully trust systems. You know your markets, how your properties are working a bit better. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You just, this just takes averages based on listings and data that it receives. So whilst it's a good barometer and it helps out, I do think, ultimately, like I know some properties are good for weekend houses. I know some properties are good for through the week houses, and therefore you tweak the rates slightly to suit, and just play around with the rates. The algorithms like to see that you're changing rates quite a lot. It means that you're active on your properties, and that's what they like to see as well. So for me, that's kind of how we link our serviced accommodation up. And it all starts obviously with the booking channels or with our own website, and then it feeds into sort of Bed24, and then the guest management side of things is on the wish box, and obviously it pushes through the guests through that, and then the pricing side of things comes from PriceLabs, and we do some daily tweaks on that, and and it all works well. The reports that the staff get and the cleaners get from Beds24 keep that all in operation. Obviously, we do link everything through Asana, So when a booking's made, it goes into Asana, and then our guest handlers then use Asana to manage the guest, check they've paid and check they've uploaded their ID and all that sort of stuff. But you depending on the size of your operation, you might not need to do that. I feel it's important for us to do that and make sure, that guests are pre-checked in, because if they don't pre-check in, then we're going to get the phone call saying, how do I get in? I have no idea where I'm going, et cetera, et cetera. If we haven't got any instructions in there about the property, then they're never going to know what to expect, or how to turn the boiler on, or how to turn the heating on. You've got to remember that a lot of these people, don't have any experience with your property, your boilers, your washing machines, stuff like that. So you've got to make sure that you give as much detail as possible. And the more you put into this wish system, so we have these guidebooks here, and the more you put into these guidebooks, the easier it is for you guys. So this is like the app. This is what it looks like for them. They get their access codes, and everything. Then they check in instructions, terms of the stay, which is the contract, arrival information. So the more we put into there, the more time you put into this, the less time you will have with ongoing management of your serviced accommodation units. And this has definitely been a game changer for us when we implemented it. And what it also does is it collects a customer's real phone number and real email address. Obviously, most people that book through, say, Airbnb or Booking.com, they come with an encrypted email address, and therefore your follow-ups no good. You're not building an email database to be able to retarget and then get your direct bookings and in months where like we are now, where we're coming out of COVID, we have a healthy database that every time we launch a new property, we send a mailer to the database. If we want to, we've just recently dropped like a summer voucher, sort of book now and get a discount, and you can choose your dates whenever suits. Obviously, just try and put some cash flow into the business. So there's just quirky little ways you can use databases, but if you're not collecting the email addresses, then you've got nothing to go back at. And this is just a simple CSV download, so you just download it and then dump it into, we use ActiveCampaign, and then obviously we send out mailers pretty much every week. This also has a chat function here, so your guests want to chat here with us, so from there they just hit this little chat button here, and then it comes to us, and we get an email notification as well as a notification here, and then we just chat backwards and forwards as well, so it allows us to be in contact with the guests. But again, I try to limit as much of the human interaction as possible. It means I can keep my staff levels down and obviously save money on that front, and just create a smoother operation. I think even now out of the COVID sort of situation, people probably want contactless check-ins, which we've kind of always done, but I think the meet and greet service might put a few people off in the short term anyway. So everything's just, for me, is just automated, and you can run this from anywhere. I could be sat in Australia, I could be sat in America, I could be sat anywhere, and run this business by just checking these three systems, making sure that everything's working well, and then we've got the back end support, with the cleaners and the maintenance, etc., to make sure that the properties are getting turned. And it works really well for us. And I'm sure if you're involved in service accommodation, even if you've got one or two units, I would strongly advise getting this sort of setup. It just makes your life a lot easier, and it also means you can scale a lot quicker. You don't want to be having guest problems prevent you from acquiring property or building your business further. So if you get it all laid out from day one, then you can kind of just, as I say now, someone could give us 100 properties today, and we could pretty much just plug it into this system. And apart from having to recruit a few more cleaners, it would pretty much, seamlessly work. They'd make the booking, they'd go in the channel manager, it would block all the diaries off to make sure there's no double bookings. It would then send them a welcome email from Wishbox. They'd then go through all the pre-check-ins, upload their IDs, their contracts, etc., etc. They then, once they've done that, they get access to their guest area. They then get their lockbox codes, they get the information. We use a thing called 3 words, which is within 3 meters, it takes them to the exact location of the property. So we've mapped all that to the front door, and it shows it on a satellite map as well. Again, that's just to help guests find the property. And then they get sort of a chance to let us know when they're checking out. They've got the chat communication if they want to, if they do have any issues through the stay, or if they want to contact us for any other reason. Quite often we get, can we extend the stay another day or two? Or kind of have a late checkout, etc., etc. And then on the pricing side of things, obviously we use Price Labs, and that just for me keeps us relevant with the market pricing and allows us to sort of mass tweak things rather than have to individually go into each one. You can set sort of customizations and you can spread that across all your properties. So for example, although Price Labs would already pick this up, but if an event was launched and you wanted to boost the price up, you might go in there and whack the rate up by 100% of the normal rate or whatever it might be. Or if you know that something's, a bit like obviously when COVID happened, I knew that the rates needed to drop. Now the system would pick that up automatically, but I just like to get ahead of the game sometimes, because sometimes the system, it works on supply and demand of data. So until the demand really drops across the board, that system probably wouldn't spot that. So, and similarly with events, until there was a lot of bookings starting to happen on the system, it probably wouldn't hike the price up. So I know last year when the Super 6 was launched for St James's Park in May, which obviously never happened, I think every single one of our properties got booked within 20 minutes. And the notifications were just going crazy, and I knew something had been launched, but I didn't know what it was. This kind of, the system picked that up, but for the first few properties, it probably didn't. So it was only the latter properties where the rate kind of hiked. So, you still do need to manually do a few things, but, I spend half an hour a week maybe on the pricing, and the rest of it takes care of itself through all the systems. Once it's set up, the properties just run like clockwork. So I hope that helps, gives you a bit of an insight into how we kind of run our serviced accommodation business. And as you can see, it's fairly simple once you put it all together. And it works really well for us, and it gives us that sort of leveraged lifestyle as such. It runs like clockwork. We very rarely have to get involved in it. And apart from the operational side of the cleaning and the linen, there really is not that much to do on the front end of it. So yeah, hope that helps. Take care, everyone.